there's something deeply unsettling about feeling your legs hesitate before you do. You go to stand up, and for a brief moment, you wonder if they'll hold. No one sees it, no one talks about it, but inside, you know something's changed. You used to move without thinking. Now each step feels like a negotiation. Like your body is no longer following your mind. And the scariest part, it's not the ache in your knees. It's the quiet fear that one day, you won't be able to get back up. They told you to watch your heart, your blood pressure, your cholesterol, but no one told you that the strength in your legs could be the difference between independence and needing help for everything. If this sounds familiar, don't blame yourself. It's not weakness, it's not laziness, it's biology, it's reversible. And it's more urgent than most people ever realize. You're here for a reason, so breathe, stay with me, and let's begin where it all starts. Eleanor used to love hiking the hills behind her home in Oregon. She wasn't fast, but she was steady. Every Sunday morning, for nearly 20 years, she'd lace up her boots, pack a flask of coffee, and disappear into the trees. That quiet hour alone with the wind and birds, it was her sanctuary. But lately, she doesn't go. It started with something small, a tremble when she stepped off the curb. A moment of hesitation on the stairs. Then one morning, she stood up too quickly, and her legs gave a strange little wobble. Nothing dramatic. No pain, but it stayed with her. Like her body was whispering something she didn't want to hear. She told herself it was just the weather, or maybe she hadn't eaten enough. But deep down, she knew. Her legs weren't what they used to be, and that scared her more than she wanted to admit, because when your legs weaken, life starts to shrink. You begin to avoid uneven ground, you hold onto railings, you skip that walk around the block, not because you're lazy, but because your body no longer feels like something you can trust. And no one prepares you for that. They talk about heart health, blood sugar, bone density, but they rarely say this out loud. The strength of your legs is the strength of your independence. When your legs decline, it's not just your muscles that falter. It's your balance, your confidence, your willingness to move, and movement is everything. It fuels your brain, it feeds your heart. It reminds you that you're still here, still capable of going somewhere on your own terms. But here's the part most people miss. Leg strength isn't just about exercise, or lifting weights, or eating more protein. It's also about what's happening inside your cells, inside your nerves. Inside the tiny engines of energy that power every step you take. You can be active and still feel like your legs are giving up on you. And that feeling, that betrayal from within, is what breaks people's spirit. But what if it's not too late? What if there are real, measurable changes you can make, right now, that don't require perfect health, a gym membership, or a miracle? What if this weakness isn't your new normal? That's what this journey is about. It starts with understanding the hidden systems that hold up your body, systems no one talks about until they fail. And 3 nutrients that could change everything, not just for Eleanor, but for you and anyone who's ever whispered to themselves, "I used to feel stronger than this." There's a reason you're here, still listening, still curious, because some part of you suspects what Eleanor realized too late. That strength isn't about how much you can lift. It's about whether you can stand up without fear. Let's say it plainly. Your legs are not just for walking, they are the gatekeepers of your independence. They are your lifeline. And yet, no one told you that after the age of 60, leg strength becomes one of the most powerful predictors of how well you'll age, not your cholesterol, not your weight, not even your blood pressure. It's your legs. Science has shown this again and again. Studies published in the journals of gerontology reveal a direct link between lower body strength, especially in the thighs, hips, and calves, and things like balance, cognitive clarity, emotional resilience, even lifespan. When your legs weaken, the effects cascade. You lose speed, then confidence, then mobility. And with that comes isolation, then brain fog, then the slow fade from vitality into mere survival. But here's what no one explains. Leg decline doesn't just come from not using them. That's only part of the story. There are deeper shifts taking place inside your body. Nutrient absorption drops. Hormonal signals go quiet. Your mitochondria, the tiny power plants in each muscle cell, start sputtering. And the connection between your brain and your limbs, the beautiful neuromuscular dance that keeps you upright, begins to fray. That's why you can walk every day, eat well, even stay active, and still feel like your legs are fading. Harold didn't believe this at first. He was 74, retired, living in Colorado Springs, played golf every Tuesday, walked his dog, stayed active. But one winter, he got the flu and ended up in the hospital. Nothing serious, just a bad spell. When he recovered, his doctor said something he'd never forget. Harold, the only reason you bounced back faster than others your age is because your legs were still strong. That sentence changed everything for him. He realized leg strength wasn't optional. It wasn't just about staying fit. It was about surviving. And yet, how many people in their 60s, 70s, and beyond are ever told this? How many of us check our cholesterol every year, but ignore the strength in our thighs? Imagine a test where the number of times you can stand up from a chair predicts how long you'll live. Sounds dramatic. But that test exists. It's called the sit-to-stand test, and it's more accurate than many of the markers we obsess over. Why? Because legs are not just limbs, they're your foundation. When you can't trust your legs, everything feels shakier. And when you can trust them, you move through the world with certainty, confidence. Joy, let's ask something difficult. Have you ever caught yourself avoiding the stairs? Choosing the elevator not because it's faster, but because something in you whispered, just in case. That whisper matters. It's the first sign that your legs are asking for help. But here's the good news: because there is good news, the body is not passive. It responds, it adapts, it rebuilds. Even in your 60s, even in your 80s, you're not powerless. You're simply waiting on the right tools, and starting now, we'll give them to you: 3 vitamins, 3 systems, 3 shifts that will help you take back the power that lives right beneath you. So take a breath. Because what's coming next isn't a miracle, it's science. And it's waiting to work for you. Martin always thought of himself as fit enough. He wasn't a gym guy, but he walked every day, did the yard work, even helped his neighbor shovel snow last winter. So when he started feeling unstable, just standing up from the couch, it didn't make sense. At first, he thought he just got up too fast. Then he noticed it happened again, and again. His legs didn't hurt, but they felt distant. Like the signal from his brain was taking the long way around. So he added more protein, started stretching, but nothing really changed. Because here's the truth no one told him: leg weakness after 60 doesn't always come from inactivity. That's just the surface. Beneath it, 4 silent forces are working against you. And if you don't address them, no amount of walking or protein shakes will be enough. The first, nutrient absorption. As we age, our digestive system changes. The stomach produces less acid. Enzymes slow down. The little molecules that once pulled vitamins and minerals from food now struggle to do their job. So even if you're eating right, your body may not be using what you eat. And the legs, those big, hungry muscles, are often the first to feel the shortage. The second force, hormonal shifts. Testosterone, estrogen, growth hormone, all of them decline with age. And while we associate those with sex drive or mood, they also tell your muscles when to grow, when to rebuild, when to hold onto strength. Without those signals, your legs don't just weaken, they surrender. The third silent force, your nervous system. The connection between your brain and your legs, called neuromuscular signaling, is like a conductor leading an orchestra. Signals fire. Muscles respond, balance holds. But with age, that communication line can fray, like a wire losing insulation. And when the signal weakens, so does your control. You might feel unsteady on uneven ground. You might catch yourself dragging one foot. You might start checking where the nearest chair is, just in case. And finally, the fourth force, mitochondrial decline. Every cell in your leg muscles runs on energy. That energy comes from mitochondria, tiny engines that burn fuel and create power. But after 60, they slow down, they shrink, they die off. And suddenly, a short walk feels like a hike. Stairs feel like a mountain. Your recovery takes longer than your effort. These aren't things you can see in the mirror. They don't show up on a scale, but you feel them in your pace, in your posture, in the quiet thought you try not to say out loud. I don't feel like myself anymore. But what if this isn't the end of the story? What if those 4 forces, nutrient loss, hormonal shift, nerve fatigue, mitochondrial burnout, could be addressed, not by more effort, but by smarter support? Because there are tools. They've just been hidden behind layers of noise, distracted by fads, buried under advice that doesn't work for your body anymore. That's why, starting now, we go to the root. We're going to open up what your muscles actually need. And it starts with 3 key nutrients, 3 vitamins that don't just help, they switch systems on, like turning the lights back on in a house that's been dim for years. And once those lights come back on, you'll feel it in every step. Every rise from a chair, every quiet return of confidence. Let's begin with the first one. It's already in your body, but likely not enough. Joanne had always been careful about her health. She ate clean, took her daily walks, got regular checkups. But lately, something had changed. She noticed it on the church steps. A slight hesitation before climbing. A flutter in her knees, not pain, just uncertainty. Like the ground wasn't quite where she expected it to be. Then one morning, she went to pick up a dropped spoon and felt a ripple of imbalance from her ankles up through her hips. It was small, but it shook her. "I guess it's just part of getting older," she said to herself. But a part of her wondered, is there more to this? And there was. Because what Joanne didn't know, what most people don't know, is that balance, control, stability, they don't just come from your muscles. They come from the way your nerves talk to your muscles. And that conversation depends on a single, quiet nutrient, vitamin D3. Yes, you've heard of it before for bones, right? But hear us what they rarely tell you, vitamin D3 is not just a bone supporter. It's a neuromuscular activator. That means it powers the system that helps your muscles fire quickly, efficiently, and at the exact moment you need them to, like when you trip on a rug, step onto a slippery floor, or shift your weight getting out of bed. Vitamin D3 binds to receptors inside your muscle tissue, especially type 2 fibers. These are your fast-twitch fibers, the ones responsible for reflexes, sudden movements, and fall prevention. Without enough D3, these fibers become sluggish. Your response time slows. And the body you've trusted for decades starts second-guessing itself, and it goes deeper. D3 also controls calcium flow inside your muscles. Calcium is what tells a muscle to contract, to move, to hold. If calcium can't get in or can't be regulated, your muscles don't respond well. They might tremble, or lag, or give out when you need them most. Joanne didn't know this, not until her niece, a physical therapist, suggested checking her vitamin D levels. They were low, very low, so she started supplementing every morning with her eggs and avocado. Within weeks, the difference was subtle, but real. She no longer hesitated at the church steps. She felt steadier walking on gravel. And one evening, she stood from a low armchair without gripping the sides. A small victory that brought tears to her eyes. Science supports what Joanne experienced. A meta-analysis in the British Medical Journal found that vitamin D supplementation significantly reduces fall risk in older adults by improving muscle strength and neuromuscular control. It even impacts your brain. Vitamin D influences neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, important for both motor coordination and mood. That's why low D3 can lead to both unsteadiness and low spirits. But here's the key. It has to be taken the right way. For most adults over 60, the sweet spot is 2,000 to 4,000 IUs per day, ideally in the morning, and always with a fat-containing meal like eggs, nuts, or olive oil, because D3 is fat-soluble. And without fat, it can't be absorbed properly. It also works best when paired with vitamin K2 together. They manage calcium like a team. One absorbs it, the other directs it. And sunlight, still helpful. But as we age, our skin's ability to make D3 from sun exposure drops dramatically. That's why diet and supplements often become essential. Joanne now calls it her confidence pill. Not because it's magic, but because it reminded her of something powerful. Her body wasn't failing her. It was simply asking for help. And when she gave it what it needed, her legs listened. They answered. And for the first time in a long while, she felt grounded again. If you've ever stood still longer than necessary, just to make sure you wouldn't fall, you might be missing what your muscles are quietly asking for. And the answer could begin with one small capsule and one quiet shift in how you rise. Gary never thought much about numbness. It started as a tingling in his left foot, just after sitting too long. Then it crept into his calf, not painful, just strange, like part of him had forgotten it was there. He mentioned it at his annual checkup. The doctor asked a few questions, did a reflex test, and shrugged. Probably just age. But Gary knew his body better than that. He'd always been steady. He didn't trip. He didn't fumble. Now, walking across gravel felt uncertain, and sometimes he couldn't quite tell where his feet were in space. That's when he started digging. And what he found changed everything. Behind those subtle symptoms, numbness, instability, delayed reaction, wasn't just getting older. It was a vitamin, one that's barely talked about, but absolutely vital. Vitamin B12, also known as cobalamin, B12 is like the electrician of your nervous system. It doesn't just support energy, it maintains the insulation around your nerves, called myelin. Without enough B12, those nerve fibers lose their protective coat. And just like a wire with frayed insulation, signals misfire. The result: your brain tells your foot to move, but the message arrives late, or incomplete, or not at all. You hesitate, you overcorrect, you feel clumsy in a body that once moved with grace. And the worst part, you can have low B12 and not know it for years. That's because the signs start subtle. A little dizziness, a strange buzzing in the legs, a sense of detachment from your own steps. In a study published in the journal Neurology, researchers found that B12 deficiency directly impairs sensory nerve conduction. That means your brain doesn't fully register where your limbs are, your balance thrown off, your coordination blurred, and no amount of walking or stretching will fix a broken signal. Gary didn't know any of this until a physical therapist suggested testing his B12. It came back low, not dangerously low, but below optimal. So he started supplementing. Not pills, he chose sublingual tablets dissolved under the tongue, because many adults over 60 can't absorb B12 well through digestion alone. Stomach acid declines. Intrinsic factor needed to grab B12 from food drops off. Even if you eat meat, eggs, or dairy, you might still be deficient. Within 2 months, Gary noticed something. His foot felt more present. His steps more precise. He didn't pause at the top of stairs anymore, and the fog that had crept into his morning walks lifted. That wasn't luck. It was biology restored. For most people over 60, a daily dose of 500 to 1,000 micrograms of methylcobalamin, a bioavailable form of B12, can help support nerve health. If your deficiency is severe, your doctor may recommend injections. But for many, sublingual delivery is a powerful starting point. B12 also lowers homocysteine, a compound that, when elevated, increases inflammation and vascular stress. So, in supporting your nerves, you're also supporting your blood vessels, your circulation, your recovery. It's a small nutrient with a massive impact. If you've ever stood up and felt a moment of hesitation, not because of weakness, but because something in your legs didn't quite wake up in time, B12 might be the missing link. It's not about reversing the clock. It's about reconnecting the wires, so that your movements once again feel like yours. That's what Gary found. And every time he walks his dog now, he moves with a quiet confidence, because he's not guessing, he's grounded. And he knows his body is finally listening again. Margaret had done everything right. She took calcium every morning, drank her milk, stayed active. She even chose stairs over elevators always, but her knees still ached. And over time, they stiffened. Not dramatically, just enough that gardening felt like a chore. Just enough that getting up from the floor made her wince. Her doctor said her bones looked fine, no arthritis, no structural damage, and yet, her joints felt older than her years. What Margaret didn't know was this: calcium is useless without direction. It's like pouring cement without a mold. If it doesn't know where to go, it settles in the wrong places, like your arteries or your joints, or soft tissues that were never meant to carry its weight. And that's where vitamin K2 steps in. Think of K2 as the traffic officer of your calcium. It doesn't just work alongside D3, it tells calcium where to go, and just as importantly, where not to. Without enough K2, your body might absorb calcium from your diet or supplements, but then accidentally deposit it in your blood vessels instead of your bones, or worse, in the spaces around your joints. That's how people like Margaret, doing everything right, still end up stiff, sore, and wondering why their knees resist every step. K2 activates two critical proteins, osteocalcin, which helps bind calcium into your bones, and matrix GLA protein, which prevents calcium from hardening soft tissues. In plain terms, K2 keeps your bones dense and your joints free. There's more. Research suggests K2 may also support blood flow by improving arterial flexibility, which means your muscles receive more oxygen, more nutrients, and recover faster after effort. And when you pair K2 with D3, they become a team. D3 pulls calcium from your gut into your bloodstream. K2 escorts it into your bones and out of harm's way. Margaret's niece, an occupational therapist, explained this over lunch. She suggested Margaret try a K2 supplement alongside her D3, specifically the MK7 form. It lasts longer in the body, stays active, works deeply. So she did 100 micrograms a day, taken with her breakfast. Nothing dramatic happened at first. But by week 6, she noticed she could squat down without wincing. Her knees felt looser. Her legs didn't resist the floor. And one morning, she sat cross-legged in the garden, pulling weeds, without realizing she'd done it. That night, she cried, not from pain, but from freedom, because what she thought was permanent stiffness was actually misdirected minerals. If you've ever felt like your joints are aging faster than the rest of you, if your knees complain during small tasks, if you're taking calcium and D3 but still feel stuck, K2 might be your missing piece. It's not a trick, it's not new, it's just forgotten. And now, remembered, you don't need to settle into stiffness. You can rewire how your bones and joints age, and with the right support. Begin to move through your days with grace and maybe even a little lightness. Because when movement stops being painful, it starts becoming possible again. Brian used to walk every morning, 3 laps around the park, rain or shine. It was his rhythm, his way of staying sharp. But then, one spring, something shifted. He'd walk 10 minutes and feel drained, not sore, just empty. His legs felt heavier than usual. He thought maybe it was sleep or hydration. But no matter what he changed, his stamina stayed flat. It wasn't age, it was energy, more specifically, his body's ability to make energy. And at the core of that ability are mitochondria. Tiny engines inside your muscle cells. They take in nutrients, oxygen, and turn them into ATP, your body's fuel. Without enough ATP, your muscles fatigue quickly. They recover slowly. They resist growth, even if your heart is strong, even if your will is intact. If the mitochondria are sluggish, your legs feel like they're dragging bricks. Here's what most people don't know. After the age of 60, mitochondrial density begins to decline. That means fewer engines in your muscle cells, each one producing less power. And that loss hits the legs first. Why? Because leg muscles are among the biggest in your body. They demand the most energy. They're built to work hard, climbing stairs, rising from chairs, carrying your weight every day. But if the energy supply dips even, the strongest legs begin to falter. And here's where it gets powerful. Vitamin D3, B12, and K2 all support mitochondrial function. D3 helps reduce oxidative stress inside mitochondria, allowing them to work more efficiently. It even binds to receptors inside the mitochondria themselves, switching on pathways for clean energy output. B12 is critical for methylation, a process that regulates gene expression inside mitochondria. Without it, the engines don't know how to function at full capacity. And K2, while better known for calcium, is now being studied for its role in protecting mitochondrial membranes, helping them survive under physical stress. Brian didn't learn this from his doctor. He learned it from his daughter, a biochemist, who gave him a book about aging cells, so he changed a few things. He took D3, B12, and K2 daily with breakfast. He added magnesium and CoQ10 as his daughter suggested, and he went back to walking, not fast, not far, but consistent. At first, he still tired quickly, but by week 4, his pace picked up. By week 7, he was doing all 3 laps again, and this time, he didn't come home needing to sit down. He came home energized, alive, because when mitochondria recover, so do you. The energy you thought was gone forever was just waiting on the right spark. You might feel tired, but you are not broken. Your legs are not lazy, they're underpowered. And just like any good engine, they're capable of roaring back to life when given the right fuel. And a little time, Lucille had a quiet ache in her legs, not pain, not sharp, just persistent. It wasn't tied to any movement. It was there when she stood, there when she sat, a heaviness. A dull pulse behind the knees, in the hips, in the back of her calves. She figured it was just part of getting older. and for a while she accepted it. Until one day, a friend asked her a simple question. But what if that ache is aging? What if it's inflammation? That stopped her, because no one had used that word before, not her doctor, not her physical therapist, not even the pamphlets in the waiting room, but it was the right word, what Lucille and millions of others were experiencing. Is something science now calls inflammaging. It's not an injury, it's not an illness. It's a slow, creeping background fire in the body, low-grade inflammation that increases with age, silently damaging muscle tissue, stiffening joints, interrupting repair. You won't see it on the surface, but you'll feel it in legs that always feel tired, in knees that ache even at rest, in a sense that movement doesn't feel as clean as it used to. Here, where it connects. Vitamin D3 helps regulate the immune system. Specifically, it lowers the production of inflammatory cytokines, molecules like TNF-alpha and interleukin-6, the same ones found elevated in people with chronic muscle loss and joint pain. When your D3 is low, that fire burns hotter, and even gentle movement can leave you sore for days. Then there's B12. B12 reduces homocysteine, a byproduct that in high levels increases vascular inflammation, which means less oxygen delivery to the muscles, less healing, more tension. And finally, K2, it does more than move calcium. Emerging research suggests it protects tissues from oxidative stress, and oxidative stress is one of the main fuels of inflammation. Together, these three vitamins form a quiet shield. They don't erase all discomfort, but they give your body a fighting chance, a break from the storm. Lucille started taking all three. She didn't expect much. But within a month, her legs felt lighter. Not like they were 20 again, but like they belonged to her again. She found herself walking longer without realizing it, waking up without that early morning stiffness. And one afternoon, while pruning roses in her backyard, she noticed something strange. She hadn't thought about her legs all day. That was freedom, because when inflammation fades, so does the noise. You don't have to feel on fire to be inflamed. Sometimes it's just the quiet hum that never goes away, until one day it does. And you remember what it's like to move without second-guessing your body. So if your legs feel dull, heavy, or just not like they used to, don't write it off. You may not need more effort, you may just need less fire. Richard kept things simple. He believed in routines, he made his bed, walked the same path every morning, ate lunch at noon without fail. But when his legs started feeling uncertain, his routine didn't protect him. At first, he thought maybe he needed more steps, more effort, more pushing through. But what he really needed was a smarter plan, not harder, smarter, so he rebuilt his daily rhythm, not around more exercise, but around restoring what time had quietly taken. Here's what his new routine looked like. In the morning, after brushing his teeth and letting sunlight touch his face, he'd sit down with breakfast: 2 eggs, half an avocado, a piece of whole grain toast, and beside that 3 small capsules, one with 2,000 IU of vitamin D3, one with 100 mcg of vitamin K2, MK7 form, and one with 1,000 mcg of methylcobalamin, B12 in its most absorbable form. He took them with food, not on an empty stomach, because D3 and K2 are fat-soluble. They need a little oil, a little richness to be absorbed properly. The B12 was sublingual, dissolved under his tongue, because his gut wasn't as efficient as it once was, and absorption through the mouth bypassed that completely. After breakfast, he'd go for a 20-minute walk, not a power walk, just a stroll, feeling the ground beneath his feet. Focusing on steady steps, heel to toe, letting his legs wake up. Midday, he'd have a light lunch, often greens, grilled fish, or lentils. He'd avoid heavy processed foods, sugar, and soda, not because he was on a diet, but because inflammation thrives on those things, and he was done feeding the fire. Afternoons, he'd do some gentle stretches. Nothing dramatic, just loosening his hips, rolling his ankles, engaging the parts of him that rarely got attention. Before bed, he made a different choice. No screens, instead a book, a window cracked for air, and a glass of water, because hydration matters. Your muscles can't repair themselves without it. Your blood can't carry nutrients efficiently without it. Richard also began prioritizing sleep, not as luxury, but as medicine. He learned that your mitochondria rebuild at night. That neuroplasticity, The brain's way of rewiring itself happens while you rest, so he treated sleep like a ritual. Over time, this simple plan added up. He didn't suddenly feel 30 again, but he stopped bracing himself every time he stood up. He stopped fearing the stairs, he walked with rhythm and without hesitation. And most importantly, he trusted his body again. This wasn't about supplements alone, it was about consistency, gentle movement, targeted nutrients, and a quiet respect for the systems beneath the surface. If you're wondering where to start where he did: 1 breakfast, 3 capsules, 1 walk, 1 quiet promise to listen. Because your legs are not asking for miracles, they're asking for a partner. And you are still more than capable of showing up. Eleanor stood at the top of the trail behind her house. It had been nearly 2 years since she'd climbed that slope. The trees were the same, the wind, the scent of pine, the soft crunch beneath her boots, all familiar. But what had changed was her presence. She wasn't bracing. She wasn't doubting. She was there, fully, firmly, on her own 2 feet. And it didn't take a miracle. It took a choice. A choice to stop accepting decline as destiny. A choice to listen to her body's quiet warnings before they turned into shouts. A choice to learn, to act, to support the systems that carry her every step. Because strong legs aren't about appearance, they're about access. Access to life, to choices, to freedom. They let you travel, visit family, climb stairs without hesitation, carry groceries, dance, say yes when someone says, "Wanna come with me?" They are your anchor and your wings, and now you know how to keep them strong. You've seen how 3 vitamins, D3, B12, and K2, don't just support your muscles, they support your nervous system, your mitochondria, your joint health, your balance, your mood, and your ability to recover, rebuild, and move forward. But the real power isn't in the nutrients. It's in your willingness to respond to your body with care, not fear, to give it support, not shame. If your legs have felt uncertain lately, know this: you are not broken, you are still in motion. And motion is what keeps us human. Eleanor didn't climb that hill to prove something, she climbed it because it was there. Because the path called to her. And this time, her legs answered. If this journey has meant something to you, if you felt seen or strengthened or softened, then take 1 more step. Not a leap, not a sprint. Just 1 gentle, grounded step into the life you still deserve. Because you're not done yet, and neither are your legs.